Tell me how you're doing.
Well, I'm doing okay. I had a really bad eating week.
Okay,
Uh,
so just define what bad means to you.
there's this, uh, just feeling like, should I be doing this? Is this a good idea?
Okay, so judging yourself.
Right.
Like
There were,
playing the mean teacher with the ruler. You shouldn't do that. Like that. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
yeah, there was, we had so many, like holiday goodies at work that were sent to us from businesses, and they're yummy.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
That makes me sluggish.
Well, yeah, if you
It
eat too
just,
much, right? Makes me feel
yeah.
sick. I get like it just feels like crap when you eat too much. It feels like crap when you eat too much cheese. Feels too like crap when you eat too much like bacon and eggs. Feels too like crap when you drink too much juice. If I had more strawberries, it would make my mouth have a bunch of cold sores on it, right?
Yeah, true.
Why do you think I would say that? Why would I bring all that up?
That's part of the judgment of making food good or bad.
And why would you make food good or bad?
Because it's just something that I've done in the past forever.
Because why would you make food good or bad? What's that in relation to?
Like feeling guilty.
About what?
Right.
Well, the guilt is the consequence, don't you agree? The idea that there's good food and there's bad food. And then when you eat bad food, there's guilt as the consequence. Go the other direction. Why? What is the whole point of having food segmented into a good or bad grouping?
Oh, whether or not you're dieting.
Well, what's the point of that?
To lose weight.
Oh, that's what this is about. Feeling bad about your weight. Feeling bad about your weight. So if someone felt bad about their weight, or if they felt there was something wrong with their size or the amount of fat they had, there's badness and wrongness attached to the weight, or fear, or anything negative attached to their body relative to weight and size and fat. Can you see why then it would be important to know, well, why there would be an attached or a projection of that badness into bad food versus good food? So the attachment to good food, don't you agree, is what's attached to the idea of eating good food? What is that attached to in terms of body image?
That you only look good if you're eating, that eating something makes you look good.
Yeah, so there, exactly. So there's a good body attached to it. So think of it very simply. Good food, good body. As if the food is what creates the body that is good. Right? Clean food, clean body. Healthy food, healthy body. So there's this attachment to goodness through good eating food. It's amazing to me is how when you're taught this survival duality, moral righteousness with food, that there's never anything talking about quantities. How often you eat this food. Because you remember when I said if I eat too many oranges or strawberries, my mouth hurts?
Oh, yeah.
So that's supposed to be a good food. Well, depending on which moral diet you're on.
Right.
So when you go into, I shouldn't be eating this, you know what's saying that in your head? Is it you or is it the brainwashing?
half and half.
Nuh-uh. No. I need you to
No?
rethink it. Yeah, go deeper than that. Because did you create that belief system? Are you the creator of that?
No.
Oh, so let's say I'm going to ask the question again. Where did that come from?
That came from my old way of thinking.
It didn't come from you. It's not you in any way. You did not create that. You did not believe that. You didn't, or I take that back. You believed it. I think that's where you're confused. This isn't your belief. You didn't create it. It's not something you woke up and grew up on your own saying that's bad food. I shouldn't eat it.
Okay.
This is brainwashing. You were taught this, right?
Yes.
Where you're having problems differentiating is that you believed it. It is moral. It's a moral obligation. It is bad food. I shouldn't be eating this. So what happens the moment you think that? Does it actually, do you respond in not actually eating it and feeling neutral about it?
Well, like at one Christmas cookie, I was okay, and at 2 Christmas cookies, I was okay. And then, like, cookie number 4.
You get okay, you're making my point right now. I shouldn't do
really
this.
Good, though.
So did that, now that's negotiating with your badness. So people who don't have food morality don't have to negotiate. They don't have to excuse or do anything. They tend to eat the food, and when they and when they feel satisfied, they stop. And they don't ever feel deprived or that they've done something wrong. They don't have to excuse it. And there's no sense of, I can't have this later, because it's always abundant. So the problem with people who have been brainwashed into dieting and that type of diet fear mongering is once you've had that cookie, you're never allowed to have another cookie. You're over. It's gone. Those cookies are here and now, and they're going to go away. So there's this weird sense of permanence in the lacking of that cookie that drives you to continue to eat more because they're so good and they're going to be gone and I won't get any more and there's never right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Christmas cookies.
Dude, you have so relapsed. You get that? Have you had a sense of that? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Oh yeah, you're so back to church. You are back in the church of health righteousness. What I shouldn't be doing with food. And that only exists for people who believe in thin supremacy. It's all in relation to thinnerness is betterness. Don't you agree? Every aspect of food morality is biased towards thinnerness is better.
Yeah, even on the good clean food is good. You know.
Oh, that is so that right there is even worse, right? In terms of like the morality, it's clean food. Well, what's that mean? That we're eating dirty food? Does that mean I'm a dirty person? It's just that to me is like now we're going to be just blatant around our moral high ground. That's and the people who use the idea behind I'm clean eating, that is so moralistic.
The broccoli and the chicken breast.
And that's all you're allowed is broccoli and a chicken breast. And you're so pure and clean and so righteous with yourself.
So so this week was just like,
well, look what happened. So I
with like the stress of the holiday and like the cookie will fix it. Yes, the cookie fixed it.
Yeah. That's not how it works. I mean, that's how it ends up. So you'll see that. You'll go, well, the holidays and the stress and the cookie. Well, that is an excuse.
Yeah, totally.
To get rid of your feeling bad about the cookie. So you feel bad about the cookie before the stress and the holidays. Well, the stress and the holidays is your way of excusing it. Am I wrong? You actually feel bad about the cookies ahead of time. And why would you feel bad about the cookies?
Because they're evil.
No. Well, of course they're terrible. They're evil. You're a sinner. But why would you feel bad about the cookies? What is that in relation to?
There's an attachment to the cookies that should not be eating bad food.
Of course, but why? I need you to. We're doing this again, and for some reason you're not going.
I'm sorry. Because it will make me fat. I will stay fat.
Correct.
And gross if I eat this cookie.
Correct. That's why. If you did not feel bad about your weight, if you were indifferent about it, let's just go into straight indifference. If you were blind, couldn't see your body, what would happen to that relationship with the cookie?
I'd enjoy the cookie without thinking about the type of dough.
The badness. Yeah. So it would totally change. It would take the badness out of the cookie. I want you to visualize that. Let's experience eating a cookie with complete indifference around the body. You are blind to the body. It is completely indifferent. It's just experiencing a cookie. Feel the difference?
Yes.
So is the cookie isn't bad. It's your body that's bad, and that projects into the cookie. The only reason why I'm repeating this with you is because I think this being a witness of this will help slow down the impulsive response that you have when you feel this. That I wouldn't feel bad about this cookie if I didn't feel bad about my weight. If I remove the badness associated to my weight, the cookie just becomes a cookie.
And just a treat to enjoy rather than...
Yeah, and then when would you stop eating cookies? Because the thing about... The only reason that as you're eating the cookie, because of the badness of it, there is this concept of limitation. So I don't have to feel bad eating the cookie anymore. So that's good news, right? Because I'm assuming at different times you've felt bad about cookies, even one bite was bad, right? For example, if we were currently trying to lose weight, that one bite was bad. Just one bite.
Yes.
Okay. Because we're not trying to lose weight right now, that gave you room with the cookie or grace with the cookies, didn't it?
It did, but I didn't take it.
Well, you did. You gave yourself some grace, but the problem is you still feel bad about your weight. So that means that grace has a limit. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
That grace is limited. So because you're not currently trying to lose weight, it gives you grace with bad food. Doesn't matter what it is. It's relative to what diet you're on and what moral belief system people put on a pedestal, right, with the food.
Correct.
So because you are not currently in the present moment trying to restrict or trying to lose weight, you are given grace with bad food. If you were currently trying to lose weight, there is no grace with bad food. You have to be perfect, right? So you don't get a cookie. You don't get a bite of a cookie because all of it creates a sense of failure. And there's no point to even continuing to diet that day because you have already failed. You're going to be fat anyway. So you might as well get as much as you can in. Okay, that would be a full-blown binge, right?
Yes.
So because you're not currently trying to reduce your weight, you don't have to restrict so much. So that gives you this lenience with bad food. Again, it's still bad because you feel bad about your weight still. But because you're on pause. This is what I call you're pausing your whole, I have to fix it. You're fixing your bad body is on pause. You also pause the badness of food, meaning you do have a period of grace, but because you still feel bad about your weight, there is a limit. So that limit in those cookies is very triggering.
Yeah.
So to
I thought I was over that.
no, my God, no, you still feel bad about your weight. So otherwise you wouldn't have bad food and you wouldn't feel that you've done something wrong, right? You wouldn't still have that. And that's okay. That's okay. But this is awesome for you to see now. Like, oh, tell the truth. I still feel bad about my weight. I just put it on pause. So I don't, and you'll notice how different you have felt over the course of the last month working with me, how different you have felt.
Yes.
That's because it's on pause. Don't you agree? It's been beneficial to put this whole thing on pause.
Extremely.
Yeah. Well, there is a downside to putting it on pause. What do you think it is?
Well, the pause button is just a pause button.
Yeah. That means it's temporary. So the badness is still there. The shame is still there. It just, you get a temporary relief from it, like a sabbatical. So how you relate to food is still toxic. It's just not under pressure. There's no pressure. It's still, you still have the, moral indoctrination around bad food, good food. You still feel that food should be, you should fear that food. And it's pressurized. It's not as pressurized because you're on pause, but you at least are feeling relief from the binging. When you and I first started, was that the last time you binged, like fully fledged binged? The first week?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what does and I'm assuming you've eaten bad food this whole time.
I have.
Yeah. And did you ever get the same sense of like, I'll just have one more, I'll just have one more, I'll just have one more? Did any of that happen?
No.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that you're starting to feel the end of the pause. Like there is a condition around this pause.
I wonder if because it's the new year and coming up, and in the past every new year meant a new diet. So I'm wondering if I'm starting to think about that without realizing it. Like, okay, New Year's is coming. Christmas is done, New Year's. Now it's time to think about how we're going to take care of the weight. Even though I'm not like saying that out loud like I am now, I'm wondering if that's part of. I feel like I'm.
Well, you just have to tell yourself.
Handle things this week.
You just have to tell yourself the truth. Really, it comes down to admitting it to yourself.
I see. Okay.
Tell yourself the truth. You were probably in your mind hoping that at this point you could maybe lose some weight. Or it might not be that. What it could be is that you still feel the fear of gaining more weight. And so what that has done is put pressure on you to not overeat during the holidays. And unfortunately, what has that done? And then thinking, okay, now that the holidays are over and all this food is gone, I will eat more easily, can manage my weight. So I don't know which, you would hear it and it would ring true. You go, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it was about the losing weight, because I think it was the latter part you mentioned.
Yeah, fear of gaining.
Right, because I've done very well with how I am right now. Like, it just.
Oh, and you got new clothes, and you've had a lot of freedom around that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and I'm loving my new pants.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and so it's not about losing. Like, I didn't think about losing.
No. Yeah.
At all, but it must have been. It makes sense to think. eating the cookies didn't, my mind wasn't, now that you mention it, I'm not going to lose weight if I keep eating these cookies, but probably more of, oh, I might gain weight if I keep eating these cookies.
You see what's the underlying belief of that statement?
The same thing, being fat is shameful and bad.
Pretty much, yeah. I always think of it like it's not, it's thinner supremacy and fatter inferiority. So it's not black and white. It's not I'm either thin or I'm fat. It's I need to be thinner or I can't be fatter. All relative.
Okay.
And so, oh my God, this is so normal. You are in a process. This is the next step. There's always a downside to the pause. And it is now the next step. You are now hitting the next step. You're now learning the downside of this position. It's been incredibly up in terms of your recovery because it has relieved the binging.
Yes.
That's huge. It has given you a sense of peace and freedom. You probably don't have shame the way you used to. You're not carrying the same sense of badness with yourself in relation to where your body's currently at. So you shifted your problems. You didn't get rid of it. You just shifted the problem. So you've accepted this as your new normal, but you still believe that fatter is better. Thinner is better. Fatter is better. So it's in relation to now. So, yeah, this is so common and understandable, right? I see this a lot too. The relief of allowing yourself to get new clothes. And any client listening to this, I know many people go through this. I bought new clothes. I feel so much better. But then there's this pressure I can't gain. And then what happens to your relationship with food?
It becomes judgmental again. It's bad.
Now there is a limit. It becomes limited. What has that taught you? Let me re-say this. How has limitation affected your relationship with food? Let me rephrase this. Morality in limitation.
It's maybe if I'm not limiting, then I'm a bad person.
Yeah. So, and ultimately, how has that translated in reality with your behavior with food?
I just would binge and thought, well, I must be a bad person.
You just overeat. You overeat.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? It's the opposite of what you think.
Right.
So I think the fact that you've brought it back in and you're overeating, what it tells me is you're not seeing that clearly yet.
Okay.
Right? Don't you agree? If someone has really learned their lesson, don't you agree they would never feel bad about any type of food ever again? They would never, ever moralize food. They would never tell themselves, you can't eat that. I have to limit it. There's never a mental construct of what you can and cannot eat ever again. You would steer so far away from that, like the plague.
Yeah.
Make sense? So the reason why you're still holding that close or that limit in your mind is because of the fear of gaining more. So you're not necessarily letting your body guide you. Your fear is guiding you. Right? The fear of gaining weight guided your decision with those cookies. And how did that turn out?
I haven't stepped on the scale, but I ate more cookies.
Yeah, that's the simple answer. Yeah, my fear of gaining weight resulted in me overeating cookies.
Right.
So let's re-experience this. I want you to go, let's rewind, and I want you to go into this knowing that you are allowed to have those cookies. They aren't bad. No human being should have a moral response to cookies. Reserve shame and guilt for torturing animals for fun, right?
Yeah.
Allow yourself to have cookies and taste it. And you know what? How are you going to know when to stop? Remove the mentally constructed limit based on fear of gaining weight. Get rid of that completely. How then are you going to know when to stop eating these cookies? What are you going to base that decision around?
It's when you feel you've had enough.
Yeah.
Like,
when you feel like shit. When you're like, oh, these don't taste good anymore. I don't want to be sick. I can tell I'm not going to be sick. Could you imagine, let's just talk about this in terms of liquor, drinking liquor. Could you imagine saying, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I'll only have 5 shots.
Oh. No.
Or I can only have 1 shot. I can only have 1 shot. Or one little thing. I can only have 1 sip of this drink. You know, what happens? Versus
3 drinks.
You're going to end up having 5 shots. You know,
Right.
Versus, oh, I love this drink. I'm going to enjoy it. I don't want to get drunk. Do you feel the difference between telling someone exactly how much they can drink or can't drink versus listening to how the body's responding?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So your fear of gaining weight directed how much cookies you could have. So totally fear-derived concept. And so what happens then too is the actual taste and how your body's responding to the cookie is completely ignored.
Right, so it's like autopilot.
Yeah. And then add that to, I'm doing something wrong. I've done something wrong. So combine the sense of, you know, the pleasure and the enjoyment of cookies with the sense of guilt that you're doing something wrong. Combine those two together. What's going to happen?
A binge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, the good news, because you're not dieting currently, you probably didn't binge, you just overate. Made yourself sick.
Yeah.
Maybe you did binge because you felt like, I ruined it, I failed, I'm gonna be fat, and I won't eat any more cookies tomorrow because I can't gain any weight. You know? Versus, I'm going to enjoy these cookies. I'm hungry. I'm excited to enjoy it. I'm going to taste it. And, you know, that's the other thing I can say. If you made a mental decision around how many cookies you could have based on the limitation or a fear of gaining weight, you didn't even enjoy the actual cookies. You didn't actually experience the cookies. You experienced the sense more so that you've done something wrong. If you actually go back, you go, I didn't even really taste the cookies. I tasted guilt. Done something wrong. And then once you say, well, once you start negotiating, you're now starting to get a sense of, I am giving myself freedom. So you're going into that euphoria of the freedom versus the actual cookie. If you actually sat there and tasted the cookie and experienced it from the mouth versus the mind. Can you, when I just said that, were you like, oh, there's a difference?
Oh, there certainly is.
Okay, you were experiencing it from the mind. You didn't even experience, because you preconceived a limitation that came from the mind. So it was a mental experience, not an actual responsive physical experience from the mouth. The only way you can actually fully experience the cookie is to remove the fear of it. You have to actually allow the pleasure, the salt, the sweet, the crunchy, the gooey, whatever it is. You have to fully experience that in the mouth. You have to remove all of the mental chaos going on.
Okay, I guess I still have to work on that.
That's okay. I'm just trying to get you to recognize the difference. So you could say, well, because I have a fear of gaining weight, I have to be mentally engaged. Because I have to stay limited. My limits just showed up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I am around bad food, which is only bad in relation to thinner supremacy, right? I have to be cautious, like it's dangerous. It's a danger, so I have to limit it. As soon as you feel limited of it or are aware it is bad, what happens to the actual experience of the food?
Well, you don't taste it, you just eat it, and you're drawn to it almost.
It's a mentally you're mentally experiencing it. You're not actually physiologically experiencing it from the mouth. So I want you to compare how you experienced it this week to if you were blind. So imagine complete blindness. You've lost your eyesight. You'll never see your fat again. You'll never see what you're eating again. You don't know how the quantities are in front of you. I want you to imagine what eating that cookie would be like if you were blind. Feel the difference?
Yeah, it's a lot different.
Oh, it's in the mouth.
Like, see the cookie in your mouth. You can taste it.
Yeah, you want to be.
Eat it.
You want to be present with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every aspect of your feelers in your mouth would be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Feel the difference? Same mouth, same cookie, totally different experience. Don't you agree it would be because there's no pressure or stress around it? There would be no stress.
Right, it's just a cookie that you're enjoying.
How would you know when to stop?
When maybe if you got full or they didn't start tasting so good anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So you intuitively know that. They don't taste good. It gets too sweet. Mm-hmm. Your mouth gets a little swollen. Your saliva gets really thick. See, these are things that you just straight ignored because of the mental decisions you were making. That had nothing to do with the palatability, or it was and the feelings of I've done something wrong. I already ruined it. Think of what that did to your experience with the cookies. Would you recommend that? Would you recommend that for people? Would you recommend you need to have fear and you need to have chaos and drama? You need to have limits and you need to know how much limited amounts of food you need to eat in your mind ahead of time. Would you recommend that, knowing what you know now over years and years of this?
Oh, absolutely not.
See, the intelligence and wisdom is there. It is there. Right?
Yeah. It just, now I'm very annoyed because I thought I was over feeling any kind of way about food, right? Because I've been doing very well with just eating. But then week threw me for a loop.
Well, I think you've done a great job. Don't discount where you're at. You're just learning that there was a limit to this freedom for you. You got this freedom, but it was with conditions, wasn't it? What was the conditions that were put on it?
It must have been, you can stay the same but don't gain.
You got it. As long as you don't gain weight. As long as you don't gain weight. How does that make you feel?
It sounds stupid.
How does it make you feel? Just hear it. I want you to hear this and tell me how it makes you feel. You only get this freedom as long as you don't gain weight.
Sounds horrible.
Does it kind of piss you off at all? Like,
yeah, it's the same concept.
So I think what you really need to do is question the concept in your mind. Go into what you don't want, the gaining of weight. I want you to go into that. If you cannot enjoy a cookie, like, be present with cookies. If you gain weight, being present with cookies. Do you want to be thinner? If your current weight requires that you have anxiety, which is what you were experiencing at the time, I don't think you realize that, because the anxiety comes from fear of gaining weight. In order to stay the same, you have to carry anxiety with bad food. Everything that's labeled bad, you have to have anxiety around that food. Do you want to stay the same weight?
Oh, no.
So what would happen if you just released yourself from managing it and you gave the body all food, good, bad, and everything in between, and you relied on the body and how it feels to direct how much you eat? What do you think is going to happen to your body if you just allow it to manage itself?
It'll tell you when you've, quote, had enough.
Yeah, yes. Do you want to feel sick eating again? Do you want to feel sick when you eat?
Oh, no.
Okay, so isn't that enough? You personally, intrinsically, do not want to feel sick. Can that guide you?
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Certainly.
Isn't that so easy? So if that's what's guiding you, the avoidance of sickness with food, that's it. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, I don't want cold sores eating oranges, so I don't eat 5 oranges. Like, it's that simple. If that is all that guides you, what's the point of having the division around good and bad food? Do you really need a division of telling you what's bad and what's good? Do you need that?
No. Not at all.
I know, right? Because it's just related to how you feel. So I'm not going to eat 5 oranges. I'm not going to eat a whole bag of buttered popcorn at the movie theater because it makes me feel sick. If my goal was to not feel sick, I don't need someone to tell me how many bags or cups of popcorn I need. I don't need to measure anything. I can just listen to my body's response to it. Right? And that means I can be present with enjoying what I'm eating. If I want to get a Snickers bar, if I get a mega-sized Snickers bar, okay, more than enough, right? Do I really need to look at the measurement in the back to tell me what a serving size is, to tell me how much I should be eating?
No.
Because I'm engaging with how the body's responding to it. So because I can rely on that, what happens to the experience I will have with that Snickers bar, with the Snickers bite, each bite?
You would enjoy it until you didn't.
Correct, and then it was over. And then I put it in my purse like an old lady, and I keep this half-eaten Snickers bar in my purse. Because I can eat it later. I don't have to eat it all right now. because there's nothing wrong with eating it. I don't feel bad for eating it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. There's no moral attachment to a Snickers bar, bad or good. So first you're holding on to morality around dieting, which is there only because you are holding morality around not getting fatter. So I want to ask you this question. If you just let your body guide this with the integrity that you do not want to be sick, are you going to be okay with what happens? What if you gain 10 pounds? What if that's your body's actual natural state right there, permanently, forever? Being naturally guided, where you don't have to have anxiety, food morality, you don't have to do anything other than listen to the body and avoid being sick. Are you going to be okay with that?
I would be okay with that, as long as there wasn't any kind of judgment or anxiety tied to it. Like that.
I need you to say that again.
I don't.
I'm asking you this question. Are you going to be okay with the body you're in if it gains 10 pounds in order for you to be completely done managing it forever?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, how's that feel?
Feel like there's no need to worry about it.
How does that feel? Describe the feeling of it.
It's freedom from additional judgment and anxiety around food.
How does that feel? There's a feeling to it. It should feel freaking good. It should feel like, holy shit, I'm totally fine if I gain weight. I am done managing this crap. Because if I have to mentally manage it based on brainwashing from the diet industry, I'm going to keep on overeating. And I'm going to gain it anyways. So you might as well accept it either direction. Because you're about to gain more weight doing it the way the diet industry wants you to do it, which is mental construction of limitation based on fear. Right? Do you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
The way you've been doing it is why the body you have is the way it is. So why would you keep on doing that? I know. I think it's because you never really pulled it together. Like, I don't know if you've actually really seen how dieting has impacted your relationship with food. The mental construction of good and bad food and limitations. How has that impacted your behavior while you're eating bad food?
I eat more of it because there's judgment and anxiety.
Yeah, and then you feel like you failed.
And shame.
Totally.
Exactly.
How many people do you think have that same exact relationship with food and behavior with food in America?
Oh, plenty.
You mean most of the dieters out there?
Right.
People who battle their weight. Can you see that? That this isn't just you. Can you see how this is like, this is pretty much what happens when people feel bad about their weight and they go to the diet industry as their rescuer. And then they're given these mental constructions of how much they should eat and divisions around good and bad food. And then they're supposed to implement that in reality, where all food is abundant. You're to live in restriction amongst abundance. And then if you eat food that is bad, you are to feel bad about it. Guilty, wrong, right?
Yes.
No, how has that affected your weight? In the end, how has that affected your weight?
Gain and gain and gain.
Yeah. So when you see yourself in the mirror, I need you to thank the diet industry for that. Because they're the ones who taught you good, bad food, clean food. The whole concept of mentally constructioning and compartmentalizing what you should and should not eat, and quantities. Portion control. Who controls that? Well, they do. That's how you knew I can only have one more cookie. I can only have this many cookies. You know? Isn't it amazing how much more there is to this recovery? It's like the same thing. It's like continuous releasing of your body. You have to release your body. Let it be what it's going to be. Allow it to manage everything. All you have to do is accept it. And so when you go into accepting it, the hardest parts are what you fear. So you go into what you're afraid of. So that's why I said to you, go right now into gaining weight. If that's what happens when you live with the body and allow it to tell you when to stop eating, that means you're free from holding these mental constructed limitations. If you remove the mentally constructed limitations and fear and shame and all of that, and you allow the body to regulate your food intake, don't you agree? That gives you freedom.
Yeah, freedom to enjoy the food and freedom to not be mental about it.
And feel bad.
Yeah.
Freedom from feeling bad. Right? Don't you just want freedom from feeling bad about food?
Yeah.
How do we get freedom from feeling bad about food?
Remove the power from the food. The shame and the guilt.
About what?
About what you're eating.
No.
About putting it into a compartment.
No. You're just repeating what I'm saying. How do you get rid of feeling bad about food? You get rid of feeling bad about your weight.
Oh.
Yeah, remember that? This is the third time we've got you. You need to practice this in your mind. And it shouldn't actually be practiced. It should be like, oh yeah, if I didn't feel bad about my weight, I wouldn't have felt bad about that food. It's only bad because of the thinner supremacy that's out there. Does that make sense, Kim?
It does.
It needs to be like a truth. Are you even seeing the truth, or am I trying to convince you of this?
No, I just didn't realize that I was feeling bad about my weight.
Well, you're feeling bad about gaining.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, I thought that I was over that.
Yeah, well, you have been. It's a process. It's not all or nothing. I really want you to not, I don't want you to feel bad. You shouldn't feel bad about any of this. Don't you agree in this process that this is recovery? This is what we're going through is actual reality in your recovery. That you are not only learning that I have to let go of the thinner body, I have to accept the body I'm in, and then I have to accept that my body could get fatter. And I have to question if that's something I should feel bad about. It's not like we're suggesting or encouraging you to binge. That's what the dieting industry is doing unconsciously, right? Because of the shame and the guilt about the food related to the shame and the guilt about your weight. We're saying get rid of the shame and guilt about your weight. Then what happens to the shame and guilt about food?
It's not there.
And the limitations are gone, right? And so I'm going to go through the 5 steps of recovery. Okay?
Okay.
Do you have a pen and paper?
Yes.
Step 1. You have to surrender the thinner body. You accept you will not be thinner. So the image in your mind of ever being thinner than this needs to disappear. Okay.
Okay.
Step 2, which is combined with step 1. You have to accept your current weight, your current size, your current ailments, your current limitations. You have to accept your current reality to get rid of the thinner self, right? So do you see how step 1 and 2 are kind of in unison?
Yes.
Okay. Step 3, you have to accept that the body unconditionally, which means you have to accept that it could get bigger. The clients that I work with that are anorexic in this belief system, they're on the anorexic side of this belief system, they start with step 3. Right? Because they are going to get bigger if they stop starving themselves. So that's where you're at right now. To fully relieve myself from this insanity, having to mentally manage this and all of this impulses to overeat and binge, I have to accept that if I fully stop managing this, my body could be bigger. Yep, that's step 3. Step 4. If your body, because you are removing your craziness and the dieting from this situation and the impulsiveness to binge is going to go away and your even emotional eating is going to completely be eliminated, your body could naturally on its own recover from the damages. So you could lose weight. So step 4 is that you are not to attach any value to potential weight loss. You're not to recognize it, notice it, or even attach any value. You are to stay completely neutral. So you accept that the body removed from the abuse could lose weight, and you're not to take part in it. You're not to attach yourself to it. You're not to hope for it, and you're not to get glee over it either. You're to ignore it. So you do not attach to the weight loss, if there is any. Can you see why?
Okay.
Do you see why? That would be step 4.
Yes, because you have to accept it before you can not want to do anything about it.
Yeah, you have to remove the fantasy that it's doing anything for you. Thinnerness, any form of thinnerness. So you, which brings us to step 5. If you lose weight, you accept at all times that you could gain it back. Gain and loss, gain and loss, gain and loss. That you're not participating in it. You're indifferent about both directions, and you have nothing to do with it. It is none of your business. You are not to be involved in any of it permanently and forever. You accept you'll never be thinner. You accept that you could get fatter. You accept that if you do lose weight, that you could gain it back. You are setting the body free to gain its fat, lose its fat on its own, with its own accord, and you are no longer attached to it in any way. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Right?
That sounds like weight loss would not be the focus.
At all, in any way.
Weight gain would your weight period. Weight loss, weight gain.
Weight loss again, weight gain again, doesn't matter. It's none of your business. It's not your management. You're to never look at it again. It's none of your business, and you shouldn't care either direction, because if you lose weight, you're going to gain it. If you gain it, you're going to lose it, and who cares? You are to be indifferent about every aspect of your body image. Period. Now, that should feel like full and complete recovery. How does that sound to you?
Sounds like I want to be there.
Okay, well, you're in the process. You're in the process of it. So go back to the question, if you gain weight, doing completely no longer managing your food intake, except for that you don't want to be sick. So you avoid feeling ill with food. That means you don't have to hold on to the concept of good and bad food ever again. That sounds pretty cool too, doesn't it? Relieved completely from shame and guilt around food. Allowing yourself to actually be present with the experience of eating. All this should sound pretty good, doesn't it?
It does.
Don't you agree this is a win-win-win-win-win all the way around situation for you?
It is. And especially with just like one, about 6 or 7 weeks of feeling like good and in control, like my weight didn't matter, and then feeling derailed off of 1 week.
That's so good for you too, don't you agree? The derailment was good for you.
In retrospect, yes.
Well, yeah, because it makes you more aware of like how you really have to solidify this. You really have to really accept you're never going to be thinner again. You could be fatter. You have to go into the permanence of that. Kim, I think this is the most common point of where a lot of people hit a wall is they don't realize it's the permanence in what I'm suggesting. It's not just a temporary mental, imagery. This is a permanent decision around, I will never again do anything to change my weight or prevent my weight from being anywhere. I literally do not care what it is. I can handle a bigger body. I can handle a thinner body. I don't care. It needs to become a solidified choice for you. And it is a choice. If you can't accept gaining weight, what do you have to accept then with food?
If you can't handle gaining weight, it's still going to have the power.
Well, the dieting, you have to.
But
if you can't handle gaining weight, you have to accept a form of food restriction. You have to.
We know where that leads. There will be weight gain.
I know. That's what I was just saying a little bit ago. You might as well accept the weight gain now because you're going to gain weight in your fear of gaining weight and the restrictions that you continue to impose because you're brainwashed to do it that way. I mean, it's like repeating the same exact thing. That is why you gain the weight in the first place with the same diet concept that you were brainwashed to do, even though that diet concept clearly triggers these issues with food, right?
Yes. Okay.
So you can see now from this perspective where your recovery had a limit. There was a limit to what you were experiencing over this past 6 weeks. It was inevitable this was going to happen. Because your recovery was based on accepting you'll never be thinner, but you did not accept that you could get fatter. So there was recovery, it just had a limit.
Okay.
Make sense?
So now I need to go the other way.
Yep. Yeah. So you're just in the process of this, and often I could have said this to you before, and it wouldn't have made sense until you experienced it. You're like, oh, I have to accept gaining weight. You might not even have heard it, right? I can't just accept my body now and remove and accept the loss of being thinner. I have to accept the body in any condition in order to have total and complete freedom, not some freedom, complete freedom. What you're going to find, Kim, when you go into accepting the body completely unconditionally, which means high or low and indifference with it, is that the freedom that you have felt over the 6 weeks was just a piece of it. It gets even more expansive than you've already experienced it.
Okay.
Yeah. So go there. Go to that uncomfortable place. You've done this before. You did it with letting go of thinnerness. It feels the same. It's going to feel like loss. You've done this before. It should feel easier this time around. So go there. Go into I could gain. Yep, I could gain. Are you willing to accept that for freedom? From having to diet, manage your weight, think about it, construct dieting. I mean, the limitations, the guilt, the shame. You want freedom from all of that, except you're going to gain. If you can do that, you are free. Permanently. And it is permanent. Right? Because what would be worth suffering again? What type of weight loss is worth it?
Oh, none at all.
See, you're still very clear.
I don't want to be back there.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no amount of weight loss worth that. It isn't. Nothing. Yeah. So that needs to become solidified in the fact that you're not willing to, in order to maintain this freedom, you'd be okay gaining weight. If that's what the body needs to do, clearly, if you're not binging anymore and you're not eating to sickness and your body gains weight, there's something legitimately wrong with the body.
I see. Okay.
So you might want to find that out sooner than later. Get out of its way. Stop managing this shit. Does that give you some clarity?
It does.
All right, good.
I expected you to say, well, cookies are good. Of course you want to eat more cookies. It's the holiday season. I didn't expect all of this.
Well,
I didn't, because I thought I had a handle. Like, I clearly was not at the place I thought I was in recovery.
Well, you are at the place. Well, you might have.
Right.
I don't want you to feel. I don't want you to feel bad, but you were aware of what you were aware of. You didn't know that you weren't aware of this until you were aware.
Exactly.
You remember? I think a few sessions back, I was like, "Just stay where you're at. Just stay where you're at."
Right.
You at some point went further in your head than where you're at.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, just stay where you're at. You're doing great. You have an A+ right now. You're still A+. Everything you're doing is perfect as it is. This wall that you just hit, it was there. You just didn't know it until you hit it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to be expected. You weren't aware of this until you became aware of it. And it took a guide to describe it for you to go, oh, I can see that now. This has nothing to do with the food. The cookies had nothing to do with this. It was about my fear of gaining weight, which is the next step. This has to be surrendered to. Yes. Yes, it does. You have to be okay gaining weight. If it means freedom. That's the key. I'm willing to gain weight in exchange for continued freedom. I would rather be heavier than to go back into that craziness and suffering. You have to feel that. I'm saying that over here, but you have to feel that and make that decision. I can't do that for you. So that's your assignment. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here.